coming up.
Is it urgent enough? Like if it's just a nice to have, like if it's some VR or AR experience, it's like it's a nice to have, but it doesn't really solve a pain point. People are less likely to, even want to spend money on that. If you're an early stage founder and you don't have a track record, it's infinitely harder to convince a developer in this economy based on equity. You are still infinitely valuable as a full stack developer, but you're valuable perhaps at a later stage.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. My name's Kieran, and with me all the way over in Korea is Nathan Linsley. Nathan, welcome back to the podcast. Can I actually say this here now, Nathan? You're actually the first guest that I've actually had back on, and just welcome back.
The second time in a row. Yeah, I think I was the first guest last time as well, but as always.
You were the first guest after I've made the revamp. You were the first guest after I made the revamp from my podcast, and now you're the first guest that I'm actually having back on for a second time. And that's something that what I want to try and do is because I just love having the conversations with the people around me and having conversations with the people on them there. I mean, with yourself, with the likes of Gunnar, with the likes of, even in my previous episode before you, with the likes of Natalie Tran. She was which you'll be answering her question either at the end of the episode and all that there. So I hope you've I've sent you the question, so I hope you've actually sort of prepared your answer for it there, mate. But last time we spoke, we were in the studio. Now you're all the way over in Korea. And I think when we last spoke, you also said to me that you're in Japan. So you've been doing a little bit of hopping and all that sort of stuff.
Hopping around. Yes, definitely have. Yeah, I've been traveling around. I have no idea. Like I was supposed to come home from South Korea like yesterday or the day before, but I canceled my flight because I wanted to stay here for a couple of more days. So I actually don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. So let's see.
So just quickly on that, what's the startup scene actually like over there in like your Japan or your Korea or your Asia area and whatnot? Because I've heard like it's very very big, and it's also very, very good as well, because my mentor, he even sort of said to me, if you're looking to do a startup even here in Australia, look to Asia and look at what they're doing to maybe see if we can potentially implement here before or early.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still very new to the startup scene in Asia as well. But what I can say is that I know that there's, particularly in Japan, in Tokyo, there's some startup cafes and stuff, and like similar. Think of like what the Sydney Startup Hub is. It's basically like that, but it's in Tokyo. And there's a whole community built around it, and there's people that'll go there and they'll meet there every so often to, they'll have events, they'll have pitch nights and stuff very similar to what we do. In terms of like South Korea though, I'm not too sure. I'm not too familiar with the startup scene here, but I imagine there would be a similar thing in Seoul as well. Being an international city, I know there's quite a growing digital nomad community here as well. There's like programs that the South Korean government have started that kind of encourage people to bring their companies to South Korea, grow them here. So there's like a digital nomad visa that they created back in like January 2024. Like they announced it last year in January. And that kind of got me really excited because I've wanted to live in South Korea for a very long time. And of course, with me being a startup founder, I'm just kind of like, okay, well, that works out really well. And I set it as my kind of like my goal, my ambition to, get myself sorted in Australia to come over here. And yeah, I mean, hopefully, like I'm talking with a friend at the moment. So he's done a bit of modeling over here. He makes his own money over here. He's been in a few commercials, TV commercials. He's also worked with one of the top, like his friend is a manager of a K-pop group, and they're in like one of the top agencies in South Korea.
Oh, mate, I mean, I probably shouldn't be saying this here, mate, but like I am actually into Korean music. So, I mean, if depending on who the group is, I might be asking you for an autograph. I might be asking you there.
What are they? I mean, it's not a girl group. What's the name of the group? NXT or something?
Like that one. Oh, yes. TXT, I think, or is it
TXT? Maybe.
Yes,
So
that one's actually a very.
Yeah.
Mate, Mate, I'm actually kind of jealous, mate. I mean, I tell you what, I tell you what, I mean, we were actually talking off air about, like future endeavors to what we both got and whatnot. I mean, you're actually making me actually want to sort of say, look, you know what? I might actually get a visa and actually try and move to South Korea just to help you out and whatnot there, mate. Be happy to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was talking about, I mean, because I haven't, we'll talk about it in a bit, but like, yeah, I have some pretty big plans for what I want to do. And it is to do with the K-pop industry as well. I don't know whether I told you about that, but there's a lot of stuff I've got planned as well.
Oh,
So
for someone there who absolutely loves like music and himself, like, I mean, like, I love music and I also love like the Asia, like like Japanese music, Korean music, like I absolutely love them there. So it's like it's really actually great to just sort of hear just from that sort of area and whatnot. Because you're just sort of going into that area, is that sort of different compared to like obviously other startups, or is it very much the similar or same from what you've? I mean, like, I know it's early days, but like compared to sort of startups, like take for example, obviously different industries, like a finance compared to a music, or compared to like, or compared to like say sport or something like that. There, music, because it's very much like everyone listens to it. It's such a big industry. It's like honestly, it's like you could even say a billion or $1 trillion industry and whatnot. The
yeah, I mean,
world,
even one group, like one of the biggest groups, BTS, like they brought in something like 4 billion USD or something a couple of years back, like just by themselves. That's not even the whole industry. That's just like that one group, just through like album sales and all the stuff that they do. So it's a pretty big industry.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, I just sort of look at it and I just sort of go like, it's something that when you actually said to me, because I can remember you actually posting on LinkedIn that you're moving in towards the music startup. I sort of was like going, I actually sort of went like music startups. Like that was very like, I won't say left field,
Very
but
left field.
But I actually hadn't thought of like the music area as potential for like startups areas and all that there. And it's something there to which, like, it just sort of just goes to show where as long as there's a market, you can almost basically do a startup anywhere.
I mean, that's an interesting point as well. As like, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but like it's looking at an industry at face value and saying there's no opportunity there is not. I tend to try and not think that way. It's like it depends on who you're selling to. If you were going into music and trying to sell to individual artists, you would struggle a lot because individual artists are already struggling as it is. They're in every movie, like they're living in apartments by themselves, really small apartment. They're like the struggling artist, that persona. It's literally the persona is the struggling artist, and they're working in a cafe to pay their way and stuff. But what I'm looking at is particularly, well, I'm looking at like the SME and enterprise level. Event like SME first and enterprise level later, basically building solutions that like solve real operational problems that exist in these companies. So whatever a medium-sized company would be going through, but in the music context. So like, for example, if they're releasing songs and like the logistics around releasing a new music, getting it distributed, the distribution, the fan engagement as well. Like once the music is out, or like when you're trying to grow a group, like how are they managing everything? Are they managing it through like spreadsheets or things? And like, is there a way that we can integrate that all together? And talking about like because I'm pivoting NadoCo into a cultural systems company. So before it was just like, oh yeah, we're a dev shop and we build software. But I was like, okay, well, I can still do that. But like as our because I look at SpaceX as an example. Their commercial revenue generating side is like launching satellites. They get paid to do that. They get contracts to launch satellites. But their R&D side is stuff like Starship and all the technology that they're building internally, which they're funding with the money they make from their commercial stuff. So I'm pivoting NadoCo into a cultural systems company in the same way. As like, yeah, I might still do development on the side as like a contracting to generate revenue. But in terms of like R&D and like building my own IP as well, I'm going to build my own IP in the music industry that I can then white label or license to other companies. So whether it's subscription, just think about your traditional startup, right? Like they're building a software that they're going to contact other customers and then sell it to them. And I'm still very early days with that. But yeah, like in terms of like the opportunity that's there, it's like making sure you're targeting the right people, and like everyone says, know who your customer is. Like I defined my ICP before I'd done anything else, and I've been using AI quite extensively, especially Claude. I've pretty much loaded my ICP into Claude, and now every time I go to talk to a customer, I send a screenshot that customer's profile. I send it to Claude first, and it analyzes it and tells me, does this fit my ICP or not? And it saved me like tons of time.
Well, you just sort of said two bits there that
I said a lot of things.
No, you said two bits there that actually sort of popped into my head. Fan engagement. Now going into someone here who actually listens to that sort of music and all that sort of stuff there, that's actually something there which really, honestly, you can almost sort of argue in sort of sense there that, fan engagement, that's the crux of everything there. And, fans, they do want to engage with their with their idols, with their favorite groups. Like even just outside of the Asian music, I'm a huge Ollie Murs and I'm a huge Jason Derulo fan as well. Like I listen to Ollie Murs and Jason Derulo's songs more often than not and whatnot. Like, to be honest, I think the people in my household probably know the songs off by heart that much, because I've been listening to them since I was like 15, 16. And, and like I'm 28 now. So I think the fan engagement and also just trying to engage with the fans, knowing what they want, it almost sort of creates almost like that circle of sort of saying, whilst they're not releasing music at this point, keeps the fan engaged, keeps them there. So then by the time they do release the music, it goes off and it gets millions and millions of views or hits and all that sort of stuff there.
Yeah, before, during, and after. Yeah.
Yes.
And what was your question? Sorry, what was the question?
No, I mean, like, that was just something there which just sort of just popped into my head there. So that was just something there which there with the question.
Yeah.
But
and what I will say as well, just on that note, is like, like there's fan engagement is one example of things I'm looking at, but as it should be the case with every single startup, is you need to validate before you build anything. Like, don't build. Then Steve Jobs hit this nail on the head like a decade ago or whatever. He said, don't build the technology and then work to try and sell it to the customer. Is you look at the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. So I'm thinking about, okay, well, what problems actually exist in the industry? What do fans actually care about? They might not care about some fan engagement solution, but there might be some operational pain that they're dealing with. Like this is on the artist manager and the campaign manager side. Like there's a severe problem that they're willing to pay a lot of money to solve, especially in a really big industry where if like I was at the event I went to was an event called Water Bomb, which is basically a massive concert, but you're shooting each other with water pistols. Like that's the vibe. Because it's the middle of summer in Korea, so it's stinking hot. So you listen to K-pop artists and you spray each other with water at the same time. There was even something like one of the biggest, so there's a guy, do you know JYP?
Yes, actually, that's actually where one of my favorite groups are. So I'm not gonna.
Exactly.
One of my favorite groups are.
So JYP, so he was performing at Waterbomb, and there was something that went wrong during his performance, but it was a very subtle thing. But I'm just as a a founder, I was thinking like, oh, like that must be like super annoying. Like this is like, I don't know what, there was something that he was doing with his microphone or whatever, and it broke. And like, of course, he shrugged it off and he dealt with it really well. But I'm sort of thinking like, there's little things like that like, if things go wrong in concerts and in when they're releasing music and even internally in their own business operations, like that can throw off huge. It can have huge like multiplication effects on like the outcome of a particular group. So like I'm looking at, okay, what problems actually exist, and then validating how big of a pain, the usual, how big of a pain is it? And do they have the money to solve it? I've been applying the sales framework called BAND, which is budget, authority, need, and timing. Is, do they have the money? Are they the person making the call, the authority? They actually have a need for it, and the timing is like, how urgent is it?
Wow.
Applying that same thing to every person I speak to, but also is like, is the pain, do they have the money to even pay to solve that problem? and is it urgent enough? Like if it's just a nice to have, like if it's some VR or AR experience, it's like it's a nice to have, but it doesn't really solve a pain point. People are less likely to, even want to spend money on that. So that's kind of what I'm saying with the fan engagement. Is like that's something that I am looking at, but there is a lot of stuff that I'm gradually like building my network and my connections in the music industry as well, which is why I made that LinkedIn post, because I want to meet people. I want to meet my ICP and make sure I understand what problems they have.
You just said there the nice to haves, and I think that's something there to which I think a lot of founders, even in today's, even over here in Australia or even just globally, I think like that's something there to which we all sort of got to look at and going, is it a problem that we're solving, or is it a nice to have? Because that there, I think, is basically the crux of the question as to whether or not a startup's going to fail or be successful. Because if it's a nice to have, because if it's a nice to have, then like it's not really people aren't really going to want to buy it as much as say whereas if it's a problem and if you're solving it, people will actually purchase it a lot more than say if it is just a nice to have. It's kind of like if you're choosing two cars, and if one car is an absolute luxury car, but if it's a two-seater, but if you got a family of four, sure,
it doesn't fit you. It's not your customer. But even if you want to simplify it even further, the beautiful analogy is, are you selling painkillers or are you selling vitamins?
Oh, that's actually a good analogy. Yes, that is actually a very good analogy.
When I heard the other day, I was like, oh yeah, okay. But if you're selling painkillers, like people want to buy that shit like straight away. Like they want to they want to fix their issue. If people buying vitamins, it's like they're a particular customer. They're like, oh, I'm going to the gym and like I want to manage my health, my body. Like, you can still sell to them, and you can probably sell them at a bit more of a premium. But if you want to get quick, I put that in quotations, like quick and fast revenue and like impact. You sell something that's actually going to solve a problem for someone, and they happen to be painkillers. People will buy that. Yeah.
So just quickly, because I was actually going to ask you, because this was when I first found out that you're in Japan, because I didn't know that you're in Korea at the time. Because what I always do is I always have a list of questions, and I even had the questions even from our previous conversation and a list of topics and all that there. And this was actually one question that I actually sort of, when I found out that you were moving to Japan, I think it was post the podcast, but also when you were talking, I think when you were still here in Australia, and then I thought, okay, when you sort of come back, or when we spoke a little bit more and whatnot, do you think that we should be, and when I mean we, I mean the Australian startup community, should be trying to collaborate more over in the Asia area, like with your Koreas, with your Japan startups, try and collaborate more with them there, rather than, because like, look, I do get it. We are obviously trying to, like, we are looking towards with the US and all that sort of stuff there. We do have ties and whatnot, but I just sort of look and I go, Asia, I don't know. Maybe we are tapping into that market, but I feel like we could be tapping into it a bit more. Do you think that there? Do you think we should be, especially the startup community, should be trying to do that there more, looking more towards Asia? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes to the problems that are being solved. I mean, across both Japan and South Korea, there's always the issue of the population. So if there's some solutions that can be developed around that, I'm sure if a startup founder was to develop a solution that could help with the population declines in both countries and sell that to the respective governments, they could make a lot of money that way. Because I know that the government will probably pay a lot of money to have that problem solved, because population ties in with taxes that get paid, ties in with the economics, the trade of a country. Like, it's such a core component of a country's prosperity and success that, like, it's a massive it's a massive problem. It would require like so much capital to do. But like, if there could be a solution that would be developed even on a smaller scale to begin with, I'm sure the governments would pay a lot of money for that. So you could go directly into selling to the governments. But if you're talking about like B2C and B2B in the Asian markets as well, I mean, countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, they're doing really well financially. South Korea is also a very successful country as well. I mean, you've got companies like Samsung over here, Hyundai, like a lot of these other, really big companies. You've got, I think LG is here as well. So like there's all these other really, it's a very prosperous country. So, when you look at it that way and think like, okay, like what kind of, like what are they dealing with more higher order problems in a country like say Thailand or Vietnam? Like they have their own unique problems that they're trying to solve. I mean, Japan's dealing with over tourism at the moment. Like, I don't know how you would solve that, but just by closing the borders or what. But like this is like little, depending on which country in Asia. Like some countries in Asia are doing better than others.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think and also from a cultural perspective as well. When you're dealing with American companies, and this is what I like to say about these AI tools as well, is ChatGPT and Claude. If you ask it a certain question, it is like almost always going to be biased towards an American mindset or a Western mindset because it's been trained on that data. Whatever you train the AI on is what it will. That's how it will perceive as what the response is. But if you've got something, it's not Grok or DeepSeek. Like DeepSeek was trained on data that they have. So like there's certain questions you can't ask DeepSeek, but there's little cultural nuances that are embedded in this AI that you aren't immediately evident. But like for example, if you ask a certain politically motivated question to Claude or ChatGPT, you'll get a completely different answer to what you would get with DeepSeek. And like these are some kind of like philosophical questions and whatever that I've asked when I've been using AI. It's like not just at the surface level, it's helping me to answer my questions, but like how are these things actually working behind the scenes? And like I don't like to say they think, but how are they thinking? And like how are they processing information? And if we were to wind back to like the cultural things as well, is if you're a startup founder engaging in Asia, you're going to have a completely different, I think, emotional perspective on the world. There's a different worldview and all that sort of thing. So your customers are going to have there's a lot more cultural nuances that exist in Asia compared to Western countries. So, if depending on what that founder is doing, like if they wanted to get a different perspective on different things, I mean, especially if you're selling to Asian customers as well, if your market is Asian, then it's a no-brainer. Like you would want to make sure you would want to probably move your startup to Japan or South Korea because you'll be in that environment and it'll help you to develop versus being in Australia. It's the environment matters so much more.
I mean, exactly. I mean, it's also like as you just sort of said there, like the cultural differences there. I mean, like take us with Australians and whatnot. I mean, like we can sort of banter and we can, say in like normal, like even in some meetings and whatnot, like you can say like the old Aussie slang and you can, have a bit of banter. Whereas like over in like other nations and whatnot, if you sort of say that there, it could come across as very offensive. So that's where like if you are trying to sort of sell or if you are trying to promote something, the cultural differences is going to be very, very important and whatnot. But I also just sort of think there that we should be looking at particularly in the startup world, looking for like the likes of the collaborations over in Asia, even here in Australia, as here as well. Like looking at what Asian startups are doing and whatnot, and potentially trying to sort of say, okay, we haven't got that here in Australia. Could we potentially collaborate with them? Bring them over here and get them to sort of start up there rather, because it's a lot closer going from there, from here to from Australia to Asia rather than going from Asia to rather than going from Australia to the US or Australia to Europe. So that's sort of where I sort of look at it is that there needs to be a bit more of that. I feel potentially more collaborations in that area.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 9-hour flight. Like the fly from Sydney to Japan takes 9 hours. South Korea is an extra hour. It's like 10-hour flight.
Yeah.
So whereas US is like 15 hours, and it's usually done in 2 legs. It's crazy. But yeah, like I mean, just on what you were saying there about like the whole people like wanting to collaborate and think like, oh, like what could we bring from Japan and South Korea startup scene, Asia startup scene, what can we bring back to Australia? I think that's a good question to ask if you're trying to influence the greater community in Australia. But for an individual startup, like there's two different angles. Like for an individual startup founder, like yeah, you could take an individual thing that a certain startup is doing. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it would be less at a high level, like a cultural or a site. Like, I don't think there'll be anything too drastically different. Perhaps the opportunities, like yeah, I'd say like the differences would exist at a high level in terms of like what is the investment scene like? Like, because in Australia, it's a lot less developed investor
Yes.
community than
It's a
there
lot
is in
harder
other
than trying to.
countries. Yes.
It's a lot
Exactly. So
harder to
whether
find
that
an
is
investor.
something, so whether that's something that a founder, even individual founder, like if they were to get connected to investors in Asia,
Yep.
the like I mean you've talked about like countries like China and whatever, Singapore, like these Singapore, Hong Kong, like these people have so much money because of all the real estate stuff that they're doing.
Yep.
I mean, if you're a prop tech founder, I mean, bro, like if you're building an international prop tech platform or something and you sell that um, to an Asian like investor, like they'll lap that up, like
Yep.
they'll throw money at that. That's I say that with just an assumption. Like I don't have any data on that, but that's kind of what well, actually no, I do have data on it. Like that's kind of based on like what I understand about how interested they are in international like investment in like real estate and things. Like that's something that they could potentially look at. If you're a med tech founder as well, I mean in Korea, like if you're doing anything with cosmetics or beauty, I know there's a couple of founders that are building like beauty apps and stuff. You could probably find an investor in South Korea maybe
Oh
that could
wow.
help you with, because they're all on board with like I mean the beauty scene is like gigantic here. I mean I can't even put into words how big the cosmetic scene is over here. But yeah, this is like depending on like what, yeah, like an individual founder could find their own unique opportunities as well, depending on what industry they're in and like what they're trying to sell. If you're a fintech founder,
Yep.
Singapore, Shanghai, all those financial center, Hong Kong as well. Although Hong Kong a little bit less these days, but like Singapore, like that's I feel that those would be good places to meet the right people if you're a fintech founder. So yeah, just
Okay.
little things like that.
Wow. I
There's two
mean,
different.
wow. Yeah. I mean, like both the angles there that you just said there, it really, like, yeah. I mean, like, it just sort of shows just how big, like like the just hearing all this here, it just sort of shows me one, like obviously how big the startup world is and like that, but also two, just how I feel like how small like like the Australian startup world is potentially compared to say the likes of Asia, like your Japan, your South Korea, and all that there. Now I'm probably going to be moving on just because there is one question there to which I actually wanted to ask you because I saw your post on because because now it could actually be referred to this here as well, but I saw this post on LinkedIn, and as soon as I saw it, I was like going, you know what, this could actually be this is actually something here to which I've always wanted to ask you about because one of your posts that I actually saw was you were saying along the lines of equity plus a retainer for like
Oh,
developers and all that sort of stuff there. That one there, I actually like. Can I actually say this here now? That post there, I can't remember when I can't remember when you posted. I think it was around April or
it was about three
May.
months ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
two or
it
three
was
months
around.
ago.
Yeah, it would have been. I think it would have been just before my second eye surgery. And that was at the end of May. So it would have been around that. It would have been like a bit before that. But as soon as I looked at it, I was actually sitting there and I was actually thinking, and I'm actually going. That's actually a really interesting topic. That as soon as I get Nathan on, I wanna like push him on that because it's really interesting because for me I look at it as sort of because I look at it from every single angle. Like for me with the retainer, I actually do agree with that. I think you know what, um, like I can see the side there because developers look, we all have bills to pay. We've all got bills to pay. Especially with the way if you're here in Australia or if you're overseas, cost of living could potentially be is going through the roof and whatnot. So I can definitely sort of see that there. But then another part of me also looks at it from the other perspective and sort of going, well, if I'm this could potentially be a very good negotiating tool as well for say for someone there who wants equity and a retainer. You could almost sort of say it like, okay, you want 30% plus a retainer. Well, how about I pay you the retainer, but take a little bit of that equity off? So it could be like a bit of 20% plus a little, 20% equity instead of 30%. and then that retainer.
Yeah.
Like that post there got me thinking so much for the hour. It was for an
Mhm.
hour, it got me thinking so much because I looked at it from every single angle, and it was like I didn't know if you were looking at it just from a developer's or from that angle, but I was looking at it from a holistic point of view, and I sort of said, like, you are right, but there's so many different ways that this could sort of be done.
Yeah, like there's little nuances as well. I think it's important to notice that like this is a very big problem, and it's not just about
Exactly.
obviously it's nothing against like the startup founders themselves. Like what I want to
Oh yeah,
say
of
is that
course.
it is exceptionally hard to be a startup founder. Like
Oh, of course.
I'm working with a founder at the moment, and I don't know, I think he's like the business side and then CEO. Their developers left like a week ago.
Mm,
I was planning to engage with them to do some they to like technical consulting. So like
mm.
they needed help with their Jira stories. They're sorting out their tech stack, preparing for the investor conversations. Like they were going to have some investor meetings coming up in 3 weeks. I was like, okay, cool. Let's sit down for like a week, a few days, and we'll go through like your entire system and get you ready for that meeting. So then when they show up, that they'll know exactly, like they'll hit every nail on the head and know how to answer all the questions. And they'll also have their development stuff sorted. So when they do start building their technology, because they've got like a clickable prototype at the moment, once they start
Okay.
building the app, like they'll have a roadmap exactly what they need to build, when and why.
Yep.
But yeah, but then like a week ago or something, their developer all of a sudden pulled out because they got another opportunity.
Mm.
And that as a startup is like gut wrenching, because not only are you losing someone in your team, but you're losing the technical side.
Yeah.
Technical people are worth so much, not just in
Oh, of
terms of
course.
money, but in terms of like everything. So like losing someone like that would be like it pretty much would destroy whatever you were working on. You have to start from square one,
Mm.
back to square one. So yeah, like to this whole retainer versus equity thing, like it's just an option, because I know
Mm.
that startup founders are struggling to find developers, and it's not because developers just, I don't know, it's not because they don't like the startup or they don't like the founder. It's because like the cost of living, like you said, the cost of
Yeah.
living pressure is there. And like a way to mitigate or manage that risk. It's not about paying their salary. You don't have to pay someone $150,000 a year. I mean,
Mm.
that's kind of what I would be at my level, because I'm like a senior developer. But
Yep.
like you don't have to pay someone 150K. Like you could just pay them a small retainer per month. Like in my situation right now, because I'm doing NadoCo, if I was to work for 4 to 5 hours a day, I would work for like $1,000 a week, $2,000 a week maximum. Like 2,000
Yeah.
is the upper limit. $1,000, because that would allow me to, pay for my groceries, pay for my rent and
Yeah.
stuff. It's not about earning a salary and like trying to, 'cause it's software developers are really expensive. Like the market rates are just crazy, especially when you're
Mm.
competing with the US. Like some of these guys are on 180K plus is in a mid level. And that's USD. That's not Australian. Like it's USD, which
Yeah.
is twice what Australia would be paying. So it's very hard from the developer side, but for the founders as well, is like, yeah, this whole like equity versus retainer, it's just another way for them to,
Mm.
like, it's another avenue to look at. It is exceptionally hard, but it's a lot better than nothing. Like you could
Yeah.
take away a little bit of equity and just like whatever you can do as a founder, like find a way to compensate that developer.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going on a bit of a ramble here, but what I want to say is like, if you are a founder and you've got past experience, like if you've exited before, that
Yep.
makes your equity infinitely more valuable. If you've
Yep.
exited your company for say 500 million, for example, and you're giving them, again, I don't know how equity works, but this is my understanding, is you give
Yep.
them 25% of your company. You can say that that equity might be worth, what's 250 million divided by 225, like 125? Yeah, 125 million or something. Like you can say that equity could potentially be worth that, but that's not
Mm.
counting like all the investors and the dilution and all that crap. Like I'm
Mm.
not going to get into that, but
Yeah. Or else we
but
will be here until next year.
yeah, but if you, I mean, and if you're already an experienced founder, like this, like when you put
Yeah.
your pitch to a developer, tell them like what experience you have, like what is that equity actually worth,
Yep.
and then And then on the other side, if you don't have any, this is the biggest thing, is like if you're an early stage founder and you don't have a track record, it's infinitely harder to convince a developer in this economy based on equity. The only way that I've seen as the baseline to get someone on equity is if you already know that person, you have a pre-existing relationship, and there's that trust there. Trust can sometimes outweigh like money considerations if you trust the person. But if you just met someone and you're like, oh, I'm going to give you 20% equity of $0. I want you to leave, work 8 hours a day, and leave your $200,000 salary. Like that's insane. Like no developer in their right mind is going to do that. Especially with some of these people, like if you're an experienced developer, I mean, you might be married or have kids at that point. So it's not even about them anymore. Like it's about a family they have to support. And then they've got those relationship pressures of like, why are you working in a startup? Like you could easily be, working in a job. Like their partner and their family will be putting pressure on them as well. So there's so many different variables that come into play. So as a founder, if you're an early stage founder, you don't have that track record, it's going to be harder for you, but it's not impossible. Like you just need to think about, like, okay, how am I actually tangibly going to compensate this developer for their time? Can I give them some sort of connections? Can I if I don't have money, like, can I give them connections? Like there has to be some tangible value there. There's not wishy-washy. It has to be actual value. And then developers will come and work for you if they feel like they're being fairly compensated. Like that's what negotiation is. And that's what people need to understand. It's not about just throwing a 20% equity at the wall and hoping someone will pick it up. Like it's very unlikely to happen.
Yes. Everything you just said there, I wholeheartedly agree with, because I was actually because I was actually when I was looking at the post, I was looking at it from the overall perspective, because what you just sort of said there, tangible. Now that there are other different ways to sort of compensate people there. I mean, as you sort of said there, if you can't pay them X amount of dollars, but for example, if you might know someone who owns like a car business and whatnot, and you could be able to set them up and be able to give them a discount for a car or something. I don't know. I don't know about the logistics of the
or like, yeah, exactly. Like helping the just like it's about negotiation, just helping them treat them fairly.
I mean, but the ways how I also look at it is because, like what you just said there, as a founder, as a starting founder, it does become a lot difficult, especially when you are trying to find, especially like if you are doing like your first startup. You sort of said that there, nobody's going to want to take, say, 20% of equity of $0 because they've got bills to pay, they've got other things there to pay, and as a founder, I mean, like as a founder yourself, like founders themselves would also have bills and all that their sort of stuff there to pay as well. So that's where it's like, like you've got to look at it and sort of say, okay, he's got a family, he's got this here, 20% might not be able to do it, but maybe we can try and either prop it down a bit and give him a retainer, or we can do other ways. But I completely agree with that, because you've got to look at, like, there's an old saying, equity is king. People sometimes say that, but for me, I sort of look at it and go, if the startup takes off and explodes and goes really well, then yes, equity is king. But when you're starting out and you don't know where it is, then everyone's going to be looking, because I've worked at a startup where, like I had a monthly retainer and all that sort of stuff there, for one of the startups that I started working with. And, and that startup now just sort of failed and whatnot, which is neither here nor there, but it's something there to what kept you going, to which you could be able to say, yep, look, you know what? It could pay the bills. It could help with this here. It could help with that there. Might not be a lot, but at least at the end of the day, it could actually help pay the bills and at least help you get over the line. But yeah, so like with the negotiation, it's like always with the art of negotiation that I just sort of look at it. But it's just something there to which, as soon as I saw that post, I was just like going, I gotta mention that there to Nathan, because that there was something very, very interesting. And I wasn't sure if you were looking at it from the developer's point of view, or if you're looking at it from like all other angles, because that's what I was looking at it from. I was looking at it from all the other angles. And the more that I sort of thought of it, the more I was looking and going, this is actually very, very smart. It's a very, very smart way to go about business, because if a business owner doesn't want to give away equity or doesn't want to give away too much equity, but they're willing to pay them a retainer, then that there can be the happy medium. So that's sort of where, like, to be honest, that post there, I was sitting at that there for as soon as I saw that post, I was thinking about that there for an hour. Like it just stayed in my head, and I was like going, that's one question I got to put on Nathan.
Like it's a very interesting question for sure. Like, I mean, and it's fair that you would look at the post and think like, oh, like this is from the developer's perspective. But I think like by looking at the developer's perspective is also looking at looking at both sides at the same time.
Yes.
Like if you're thinking about what the developer wants, like obviously if you're just talking about the developer's perspective, yeah, like go and pay their full salary. But from the founder's perspective, like the retainer is that happy medium, like you just said, like that does actually cater to both sides. Like it helps the founder to obviously keep a bit of cash in the business to invest in other areas, but also allows the startup, sorry, what's it called? It allows this developer to have a bit of like they've got a bit of skin in the game, but they're also like getting a little bit of money on the side. But as a baseline, like if you absolutely cannot afford cash to pay someone, the last resort, I think, is to look at industry precedent for the industry, the vertical that you're in, and go based on 20% equity. And this is a lot of work, but based on this equity, what past companies have sold, what have they sold for? And how likely is it to sell? Like if you wanted to go full statistics mode, you could say that, like, let's say you had a 14% chance of, like, you know, in maths when we were doing like financial probability, like the financial expectation of randomization, the stuff that we said we'd never use. This is how you use it. Is you literally just go, is like look at that financial expectation. Okay, based on a 20% equity of a average $700 million valuation of a company. And then the likelihood of that industry, that particular vertical, like how often those companies sell at all, then you could kind of work out a rough amount and go, okay, this equity is probably worth about 50 million. I mean, but for what I find is really funny is like a lot of people they look at really big numbers, and it's hard to imagine how big that number is. Like the jump from, like, for example, $1,000 to $10,000 is a lot less compared to 100,000 to 1,000,000. Like the actual jump between those two numbers. So people don't, if you tell someone, oh, your equity's worth 50 million, they'll be like, okay, cool. Like it's just a number to them, but they have no concept or context of how big that number actually is. So that would be the secondary challenge there. If you were to, I mean, yeah, there's probably some system that could be developed. Like if you really wanted to convince people of the value of that equity and like how much their equity is actually worth, like just developing some dumbed down system that anyone could understand, that would make it a lot easier to sell just the pure concept of equity to a potential co-founder. That's like the baseline. If you can't do any of that, if you can't pay them and you don't have that industry precedent to back up the equity that you're putting forward, I have bad news for you as a founder. I think you're going to struggle for a long time.
Exactly. And that's where, you know, like you've just got to look at sort of like, you know, other ways, because you just sort of said that there, you know, I mean, like what else can I sort of provide? Can I provide them with connections that can helpfully, you know, like, can I provide them with connections? I might not be able to pay them, but if I can introduce them to someone and you know, and they might be able to get a job from that there, or be able to get money from that there, and whatnot, that might be able to be good, and that there can just create a bit of goodwill and a bit of good trust between that.
Bit of goodwill,
So that's where, that's where I think, like, if you are looking from someone, unless it because you said there, if it's a friend, you know, if you know them, then yes, and then they'll probably go in it there with you. But if you're looking at it from someone who you've just sort of met, like if I like met you straight off the street and whatnot, Nathan, and I wanted to have just a quick chat with you and talk to you about your development and all that sort of stuff there, you know, you've got to try and find ways to sort of be able to sort of compensate everything, because people, they don't, because at the end of the day, look, you know, we all got bills to pay, we all got places where we all got to live, we all got to keep roofs over our heads, you know, and like some people there, they do have families to sort of support, and if they do, you know, I mean, so that's where I think, like, if there's ways that you can be able to find ways to support them, then yeah, it can
Mm.
definitely help them with that. So yeah, but that post there, I was looking at it and I was just like going, that there was just one of the topics there to which I just sort of wanted to just sort of slide in there and just think maybe we could have spent about a good 5 or so minutes there in that there and whatnot, in with the
Yeah.
in with the chat and whatnot. But AI, and I know that we spoke a bit about AI in our last conversation as well, but since our last conversation, obviously, you know, like you can talk, I think one there that you're talking about, I think that was DeepSeek, if that's the one there that you were talking about. You're talking about like all these other sorts of AI and whatnot. Since our last conversation, how big would you say AI is sort of actually sort of grown, or is it still sort of bit the same and all that there now?
How much has it grown? I mean, there's definitely a lot of stuff happening in the industry. I'm just trying to think what's happened in the AI. Like, there's a lot of, I'm not 100% sure, but like there was some big developments that were happening, I think, in OpenAI recently. There were
Yep.
some changes that they were making. But definitely like this year in particular, like this is coming back to like why I've kind of pivoted into music a little bit more. I'm
Yep.
going like 70 to 80% music, like the SME stuff, is because like AI has revolutionized the development scene in particular. Like as a founder now, you can get, whoops, what the hell have I done? You can get your. I clicked on it because my laptop is touch screen. I clicked on a tab and it like
Yeah.
clicked it across it. I'm like, oh my god.
The
Um,
art of technology there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly. I need an AI that's going to prevent me from making involuntary flicks across my touch screen. Um, but but yeah, no. So like the AI side, let me think. Yeah. So like, I mean, you can get your app built for free, basically. Like you just pay, well, not for free, but like you pay the monthly subscription for an AI tool or whatever, like Cursor or Bolt or whatever. You type in a
Or
prompt,
Bubble.
or Bubble, and you
Mm.
type in a prompt, and then you get your app built. You get your
Mm.
prototype built. And you know, obviously, my whole business model for all of last year was building these sorts of things. So, like when AI kind of took off in that way, I'm like, well, that puts me out of a job. Like AI literally took my job earlier this year. But
Mm.
rather than fret about it, I'm like, okay, well, AI is really powerful and it can do all these things. Like, how can we actually leverage AI more effectively? And now I even say to startup founders, I'm like, don't even touch developers until you've used these AI tools first, because they're so powerful and helps them to save a ton of money. Um, so I would say that in that sense, AI, like I don't want to say that AI has all of a sudden taken off. Like it's definitely been happening in the background, but I felt it as in particularly in the last 3 to 4 months, it's been a lot more ubiquitous. It's been lot more everywhere. The people are like talking about Bolt and Cursor. Like it's just been everywhere. Like it's been a lot more
Yeah.
spoken about these days. Like people are actively using these tools now. Whereas before it was a very niche thing. It was a very kind of thing that you would only like if you were an insider, like you would know about these tools. But now everyone's using them. So in that sense, I think that's how AI has kind of developed over the last couple of months in 2025 in particular. And like, yeah, like I've built my whole business strategy around how do I integrate AI into what I'm doing,
Mm.
but also how do I compete against it, but like how do I run alongside it? Like instead of trying to compete with AI, how can we make AI our running partner instead of our adversary that we're trying to beat down, trying to
Yeah,
prevent losing a job or trying to prevent that. But then in terms
of
of like
course.
AI development as a whole, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that OpenAI is doing at the moment. I know Meta as well. Yeah, like I saw an AI that came out the other day about people have translated cat meows into English.
Yeah,
Like
that's. Do you wanna? Do
someone's
you
try.
wanna?
Have you seen that? Did you see that on the
No,
news?
but no, but as soon as you said that, you wanna? Do you wanna know what that actually reminds me of? It reminds me of that Simpsons episode. You know where Homer's brother Herb creates a
Yeah.
talking robot to translate baby speak. Like that there is what it sort of reminds me of. But it just also just goes to show, just because we actually film, because at the time of this recording now, we're actually now in July, and when we first spoke, you was actually at the end of January, and I actually remember you actually sort of saying there, where you were telling developers to go into, I mean, like uni students who are like doing, who are, I think it was software engineers and all that there, to be full stack developers. Like that there, like it just sort of, I mean, like obviously, you know, like as soon as the business does take off and like that, you will need a full stack developer. But I think for a prototype, but I do think for a prototype, you don't need
Yeah,
one. You just sort of can use like those AI tools. It just sort of goes to show where, like, as you just sort of said there, that AI is just sort of taken like your job and whatnot, because, you know, because like if you're,
yeah,
because like unless your startup's now starting to now sort of go up and up more,
mhm,
you really don't need a developer, so to speak. I mean,
yeah,
unless, for example, you want to be safe, which I think some people do, but some people might not want to trust AI at times, because
yeah.
sometimes
So
someone might
there's
be
that
buggy.
market too. Yeah,
Yeah.
like there'll always. I think there's a bit of a bell curve. Like there'll be people that won't trust AI no matter what,
Yes.
and there'll be people that always trust AI no matter what. And
Mm.
then there's that happy medium of people that are on the fence about using AI. And I
Yes.
think the opportunity for developers, like you mentioned, like I said that the AI took my job, but I say that completely as a joke. Like AI hasn't taken my job. Actually, it's redefined my job. AI
Yeah.
hasn't taken my job, it's redefined my job. So now, instead of coming in at the early stage, which, by the way, early stage founders that are building these prototypes don't have money anyway. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's like it's not really much additional value to being their only source of building the app. Actually, it probably helps me in a way,
Mm.
because these guys, they don't have a lot of funds to throw at building development, so they're better off
Yeah.
just using these AI tools to build it up. But then, and coming back to the point you mentioned about students and being full stack developers, like, you are still infinitely valuable as a full stack
Yeah.
developer, but you're valuable perhaps at a later stage. There's
Yeah.
still larger companies like SMEs and above, and especially the older generation, that won't touch AI with a 10-foot
Mm.
pole. Like, you know, there's all this corporate red tape and whatever. Like, I mean,
Oh yeah,
Kieran,
of
like,
course.
did you work in the banking industry before? Like, you worked in
No,
corporate,
no,
or
no. My mother's worked in the banking
your
industry.
mother? But like, you
Yes,
know how
mum.
corporate works, right? Like, if you want to get a
Yes.
decision through corporate, like, you got to go through. So like, for the foreseeable future, as an engineer, if you get a job at somewhere like, you know, Atlassian, or if you're a software, if you're working for a software vendor that works with SMEs and enterprise level, you'll always have
Yes.
work, I think. At least for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future, like, because there's so much red tape that needs to be
Mm.
pushed aside to get AI to be an accepted practice in a company, that, you know, it's going to take a while for that opportunity.
And and I think we just sort of just lost Nathan there just for a quick
Parts of the
second.
developer's job. It's how are you positioning yourself.
Yes.
You have to stay ahead of the tidal wave, ahead of the curve, and the way that you do that is you position yourself effectively. So if you're no longer valuable at the prototype stage, like maybe you're more valuable at the scaling stage, or you have to be able to communicate your value, the intrinsic value that you provide. Simply saying that I write code, even as a basic level, this just not going to fly anymore. Like,
Yeah.
there's a million other developers like you, but like, what unique insight do you have into that industry? What unique,
Mm.
you know, things have you done, and unique value do you add that even another developer cannot? I mean, there's a lot to be said about the things that humans can do that AI still cannot. I mean, AI can't plan out an enterprise grade project. It can't code. It can't do load balancing and setting up all the
Yeah.
AWS infrastructure and all that. If you can do like all of like so I had someone say, like, a proper full stack developer is not just, oh, I can use React, Node.js, and SQL Server. That's what everyone thinks full stack is, but full stack,
Mhm.
true full stack, is like, you can do infrastructure as well. Like, can you set up an
Mm.
AWS, like an AWS instance, and actually host the app on there? Can you manage the domains? Like, infrastructure, DevOps work as well. DevOps, or is it whatever? I see. I'm still new to this, but I think, like, these infrastructure things as well. AI still,
Mm.
it can maybe tell them what to do, but I don't know how much you've done with AWS, but that thing is like a labyrinth of confusion. And they
Yeah.
change the interface like every 2 business days. Like, it's like, it's very hard to, like, even if AI, because you know how slow AI updates, like, even if it learns like how to navigate around AWS, it's gonna make mistakes, and that's where I think there's still an immense amount of value for a human who
Yeah.
understands these things end to end. And then also like as a developer as well, talking about using AI as a running partner. Use AI to speed up your workflow so you can make yourself more competitive. It's like maybe you don't need to put such a high margin on your, like it's less risk for you now. So you can
Yeah.
de-risk your own work and charge less. And then you can also get a foot in the door that way. Although I will say that I'm not an advocate of decreasing your price and just keep lowering your price until someone hires you, because you're setting
Yep.
yourself up with price shoppers and people that don't
Yeah.
actually value you. But if there's some kind of unique advantage where you can lower your cost a little bit, I mean, when manufacturing moved overseas to like places like China and stuff, like it's not because there's no negative part of it. It's actually a very good reason, like using countries that have all those labor resources, and the living costs are potentially a lot less. You can keep the costs down a lot. So if you're as a full stack developer or a student or whatever, like if you can keep your costs down, you can make yourself competitive as well. That's another way. So being competitive as a developer by using AI to lower your costs, or having an extremely like unique sense of value that you provide, like specialize in a particular industry like med tech or fintech, and like that'll enhance your value and position you in the right way that people will actually want to hire you.
Yeah, I mean, like just also quickly there, we lost you midway through, but midway through, but you came back. It was like 5 or so seconds, but so that there was all fine. So
Let me know
if it was,
to repeat it.
yeah, no, that there was fine, because like I think you came back. It was around I can't remember, because like it was like would have been for about 5 or so seconds, 5 maybe 10 seconds or whatnot. Doesn't really matter and whatnot, but you sort of explained that there really really well. But as you actually sort of said there, I mean, like because I was actually talking with someone, and they actually sort of said there that the finance industry is probably going to be the last industry to actually implement AI. They actually believe that. I haven't actually spoken to people in the finance industry, even though I do have family that works in the finance industry, but people but people who I've spoken to that are in that AI sort of space there, they do say that the finance industry is going to be the last area. So so it is going to be very, very interesting. And the way as how I sort of put it is, it's almost like, as you just sort of said there, that you're basically, instead of making you like take a full stack developer, you all around, from start a business up to the top end. It's almost like sort of saying, well, you know what, a founder with not a lot of money, they can, do it there themselves, and we can then focus on for when the business grows up to 100 million, $200 million, and we can do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and that's when they'll, want to hire a full stack developer to fix the bugging, fix the coding, and all that sort of stuff there. So it's almost like, I think that it's, as you sort of said there, it's enhanced it. And I think that's sort of the ways how AI is probably going to be working now for the next few years. It's probably going to enhance the way as to how certain jobs are going to be in the future, which is really exciting. But it's also very, very scary, because it can also. But the exciting part is it gets rid of like those mundane jobs, but it can also just enhance you to be able to do lots of different other things. So there's the very exciting part. Now, because I know that we are going to be a little bit strapped for time and whatnot, because I know that you've got a meeting somewhere else. I'm going to be asking you now my 2 questions, but I think this question, the reason why I'm going to be asking you Natalie Tran's second question first is because I think this bit here could be a little bit of a topic and whatnot. It's on gatekeeping. So, what are your thoughts on gatekeeping? What are your thoughts on that there? Because I know we are heading into, like, with AI and with everything there, but we're also, even just with information just everywhere. Thoughts on gatekeeping? That was one of Natalie's questions. Thoughts on gatekeeping?
There we go. We cut out for a second there.
Yeah. Yep. We just cut out for about 5 seconds, 10 seconds, which is all good. So, but thoughts on gatekeeping?
Let me see how's my data. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
because I just bought another data thing. Yeah, no, that's
okay.
fine. Yeah, I bought. Yeah, it's $11 later.
Oh,
Yeah, no, that's all right. But yeah, so what's my thoughts on gatekeeping? So you're talking about gatekeeping information, right?
yeah. So basically, like the entire thoughts on gatekeeping. I mean, because especially now we're heading into AI and whatnot. Like honestly, I think that this is like the holding back of like gatekeeping. Honestly, like I don't know. Honestly, I think that in all honesty, information should be accessible for everyone and all that sort of stuff. There, I mean, that's just sort of my view because it's like I'm always of the belief you can learn absolutely everything from anyone. Absolutely learn anything from anyone. So maybe that's just me, but I don't know.
Yeah. So when you talk about like information being available, are you talking about as an infrastructure level or people being able to access
Um,
information? Or are you
I
talking
think
about individuals saying,
I,
I'm not going to tell you that thing?
I think people's I think if it comes to certain stuff like IP, that should be stuck with like businesses, like that they should be stuck with the businesses.
Mhm.
But I think we just in like for example, ChatGPT. If ChatGPT was to say, for example, if the British government was just, or the Australian government was to come out and say we are banning ChatGPT's access in Australia. I wouldn't like that because that's a little, to me, in my opinion, that there's a bit of gatekeeping. It's keeping information or the way of using tools like AI out of it.
Oh, gatekeep. Okay, gatekeeping in that sense.
Well, that
Um,
that's
what's
my
my
thoughts of it.
opinion on it? Yeah, my opinion. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, the internet was created to enhance humanity and make humanity a better species, better people. Like
Yes.
the internet has obviously revolutionized society and everything that we do. So I think that, yeah, by cutting off and limiting information to people, unless there's some like business, like if you're talking about a company and it's a security reason, like there's an actual business reason why you would want to like prevent something from being accessed. Like if you're working in fintech, probably you don't, so not fintech, but in the finance industry, probably us making sure your employees can't cut and paste
Yeah.
clients' data into Chat GPT is probably a very good idea.
Yeah. Oh boy,
Regulation,
that's a lot
but
of that would open up so many can of
yeah,
worms.
that's like regulation and like legal hell. But in terms
Oh
of
yeah.
like generally like saying that, like for example, as a normal company, oh, you can't use Chat GPT because we pay you to know how to do this skill, and if you're just using Chat GPT, like that's devaluing yourself. See, but this is a kind of a gray area as well that I'm kind of looking at. It's like AI can enhance your speed and efficiency, and I think that we are foolish not to utilize AI to its maximum potential. But
I agree.
at that same token as well, if you're a consultant and you're charging someone $10,000 for a consultation, but then you copy and paste the brief into Chat GPT and then give it back to them, that is like an ethical no-no. Like you just don't
Yeah.
do that.
Oh boy, no,
Like they're paying you
no.
for your expertise, and that is misrepresentation of services. And like I can't
Yeah.
even begin to go into like all of the legal issues of that. But using AI to help you do research and to speed things up, that should definitely be a thing.
Mm.
For clients and customers to say you're not allowed to use AI, full stop, bar none at all, I think that's not right. I
Yeah.
think that there should be some limitations placed on the use of AI and certain types of information. The same way that, like, if you were in what's it called? Like if you're doing a research paper, PhD, or even in school or something, they ask you to cite your sources. Like, it doesn't matter where you get the information from. If it's regulated and you do it in the right way, as long as you mention where you got that information from, um, and you know it's just some sort of regulation. Like I'm actually, yeah, I'm a bit on the fence about it. Like on some
Yeah.
token, it makes sense to regulate depending on what industry you're in and what purpose that particular technology is
Mm.
serving in what you're doing. But
Yeah.
on that same token as well, there's also should be an element of freedom as well. So
Mm.
full gatekeeping, no, but full freedom also no. I think that has to be
Yeah.
regulated.
I I agree with that because it's like as you sort of said there, if you're in the bank, you don't want to be putting someone's finances into bloody Chat GPT and then all that there because like that there can open up so many cans of worms. Or if you're charging someone, $10,000 and you're just putting everything in Chat GPT, again, that there's a no. So I
That's
think
messed up. Yeah.
yeah. So I think like there is a bit of of that happy medium that I think that we need to sort of find, kind of like what we've been talking about throughout this entire episode, of basically like finding the happy medium, whether it's, you're in Asia, whether in like wanting to work here in the startup world in Asia, or working in the startup world in Australia, or just, just overall everywhere, or whether it's negotiations and all that sort of stuff there. I think I've actually found the title for this, for this episode, finding the happy medium. But the second question there to what Natalie has sort of asked, and this is the first question actually. What have you actually said no to that has impacted your life, or what is something you have said no to, and how has that impacted your life? So basically, what's something there to what you've said no to before that has impacted you?
In both a positive and negative way?
Yeah, it can be a positive, negative. Floor's yours. Go ahead.
I mean, I can tell you right off the bat right now that saying no to going back to a job and choosing to pursue my business was one of the best decisions that I ever made. I was having this conversation with a friend of this friend that I told you about, who has all these connections in modeling and in K-pop and whatever. Like I told him, I said, like, given the choice between a $200,000 salary or chasing my dreams and kind of living, like I would much rather live on a little bit of money to kind of get me started and kind of build my business up and everything. I would choose that any day. I would choose the struggle any day over an easy life. I mean, that's not to say that there's no merit to working for a company. I mean, some people just don't want to run a business. I mean, running a business is extremely difficult. Like, it's not something that most people should be doing. But if you really do enjoy it, and that's like your passion, and that's what like excites you, then yeah, you should chase that. So like, probably one of the best decisions I made for myself is saying no to that traditional way of thinking. It's like, oh no, I only exist to live a certain way, to do a certain thing, and I'm just going to keep, because that's just the quote unquote right thing to do. So that's probably the thing that's impacted me the most. Like my business has been like going a bit of a roller coaster over the past year. I don't share often about how difficult it has been, not because because like I don't see any value in sharing like all of the difficulties all the time. It's like, it's not about like, here's what I'm struggling with. It's like, okay, here's how I have struggled and here's how I've overcame it. I don't like to present problems. I like to present solutions. So if I can say, hey, I struggled with all this stuff for 12 months, but then I figured it out at the end, that's a lot more inspirational to someone than saying like, oh, I've struggled and I'm still struggling and I can't figure it out. Please help me. I mean, that's almost like whingy, whiny. Like I've stopped myself from posting stuff on LinkedIn sometimes, like where I'm talking about struggle too much, unless I've actually solved that problem. Unless it's, because if it's not adding any value, then what's the point in talking about it?
100%, 100%. I think like, as I've always just sort of, I remember saying this here to you, Nathan, before, like, it takes a certain person to go into startups. And I think, like, to be honest, I think, you're living over there in Korea right now, or like you've been over there in Korea right now and all that there, like you are, like you probably wouldn't have gotten that opportunity, if you went back there. So like, like I think that it takes a certain person to want to say, look, you know what? I'm happy starting my own business, doing not doing the 9 to 5, but looking at these opportunities. Look at where you go.
I mean, I'll also say as well, as like, if I'm to share a personal story, like I don't know if you can see on my finger. Can you see this scar on my finger?
Yeah, I can see it.
It's actually from an electrical shock injury that I had about a week and a half ago. I was working on a faulty air compressor at my like I was doing a casual job, and it shorted out, and 240 volts of electricity went through my hand.
Have mercy.
Like I haven't told many people this, but like there was a circuit breaker. The circuit breaker switched on, which actually saved my life. If I didn't have that circuit breaker, you and I would not be having this conversation right now. Like, I would be dead. That's how close I came. Like I ended up going to hospital and everything. Like I had to get full checked out and everything, because like it burnt my skin off. Like it was charring and all this crap. So the reason I bring that up is like, like I had a situation where, like, so it's like my trip in Korea, like I was supposed to go home like 2 days ago, and I canceled my flight. I'm like, well, I don't need to be back in Sydney until the 19th of July or something, technically. So I'm like, well, why don't I just like ride it out here as much as I can and just sort of see how things go. I mean, my friend actually, he put me up in a hotel for the next couple of nights because I told him,
Oh
I said,
wow.
look, I've cancelled my flight. Yeah. My mate, I think because he's done his modeling work, like he has a bit of money saved. So
Yeah.
for him, it's like, yeah, whatever. He said, and he was, and you know, God bless him, you know, he was so kind and generous. And I even offered, like, he offered me to sleep on his couch as well. And I said, oh no, that's amazing. Like I was very happy with that. And he's like, actually, no, I'm going to put you in a hotel. So he's like, he put me in a
Wow.
hotel just up the road here. And he's for 3 nights. He didn't ask any question. He just would have pulled out his credit card and paid for it. So,
Jeez, that's just
um,
yeah, super
and
generous.
so that thing happened to me. And then I'm like,
Mm.
okay, cool. Well, I don't need to be back in Australia because I've quit that job. Like I'm sending my resignation in today. Like that's like a massive like work health and safety violation. Like this
Yeah.
person knew that the equipment was faulty. I told them about it and they did nothing about it and they just let me use it and then I nearly died. So so I'm going to I'm not going to make a big deal about it. Like I'm just going to leave. Like I've submitted a report to the
Yeah.
relevant people, but I'm just gonna but I've taken this as an opportunity, right? It's like now I have no reason
Yeah.
to be anywhere. I'm for the next couple of weeks until I can sort out my
Mm.
income situation. I mean, I'm pretty much doing my business full time once again, so that's like the
Yeah.
positive side. But yeah, like so coming back to the question you asked me
Yep.
is like what was it like? What have you said no to?
What have you
Yeah.
said
What have you
no
said
to?
no to? Yeah, like what have you said no to is like, yeah, like I've said no to that simple life. Like, yeah, like
Mm.
I took up a casual job for a while to help because I was, like I said, I was pivoting my business, and
Yep.
in taking that sort of risk, I can't just go full time on that. I need to kind of have a bit of backing behind me to kind of fund whatever I was doing. And for a
Yep.
while, it was working really well. But now this incident has happened again, and now I'm pretty much back to square one. I mean, I've got some savings behind me, a lot more than I did back in January. Like when we were talking, I only had about 3 weeks of savings left.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, like I left Sydney. I went back and staying with my parents and stuff because like I was so passionate about what I was doing about my business that
Yep.
it's like no, like I'm not going to get a job. I'm going to just well I'm not going to get a full-time job. I'm going to just figure out my business and I'm just going to make this work. So in terms of like the saying
Yep.
no to like in the stuff that's happened in the past 6 months, like I've been injured, like near death experience. I have you know, I've like I chose to leave Sydney to change my business around everything. There's this
Yeah.
constant like fighting and going like, yeah, that's like the biggest no that I've ever said in my life. But it's been probably the best thing that I've ever done. And like, in spite of everything, like I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, Nathan, there, mate. That there, like, it seems like there that you're doing like really well. Like, obviously, you know, you're going over there to Korea, and obviously being over there in Asia. I'll ask you before I let you go, before we end the episode. What's your question for my next guest?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I asked. Maybe this is what I put forward to Gunnar last time. Is like, I guess, yeah. What has been like the biggest? Yeah, that's all I can think about. Is like, what's been the biggest decision that you've made in your life that's impacted you? Um, I just feel like I got to ask something differently though. That's like pretty much the same question again.
It can be,
Let's try to-
it can be whatever question that you want. It can be big, small. Doesn't have to be anything. It can be It can be anything. Hell, I mean, it can even be something there like, what's your, I don't know, anything. So feel free to answer any question, ask any question that you want for my next guest.
I was thinking. Yeah, I mean, okay, so how do they feel? How do you feel about the current progress of technology? And if there's any one thing that you wish would happen or wouldn't happen in the next like 5 to 10 years and something like that, like what could happen with technology that's going to impact that you think is going to impact your life in the best possible way, and either like what's going to make the biggest impact for you, and then like how are you going to navigate, like how would you how could we as a society live in that world? So I'm going to
Oh,
simplify that question as like what is the next within the next 5 to 10 years, what is the biggest change that you want to see, what do you think will actually happen? And in both cases, how is that going to affect you, and how would you choose to live your life?
Oh, that's actually a good one. To be honest, that's actually a really good one, to which I actually kind of want to answer myself. I do have,
Yeah.
that's actually a question there which I've thought about so much, but I'll, I'll definitely can't wait to hear from my next guest's answer for that one there. Nathan, it's been a pleasure chatting with you on this episode. We'll go, again, Nathan's going to be coming back, whether it's, start of 2026 or end of 2025, who knows? But Nathan, thanks again for agreeing to come on. And I'll speak to you soon. And this here concludes the episode.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me, Kieran. It's been great. Always.
Cheers.